Hello and welcome to the Winds of Change of Urban Tech Helsinki. My name is Kaisa Ahonen and I'm the project manager. Here with me today is our business advisor Ari Seppänen. Urban Tech Helsinki is a unique cooperation between the City of Helsinki and Aalto University. We help urban tech startups test and validate their clean and sustainable solutions in real-life environment and offer them coaching and training in our incubation program. We also will have pre-incubation activities on campuses in the Helsinki region with our partners Helsinki University and the Metropolia University of Applied Sciences.
So let's start with our program. We are happy to share with you, first of all, the keynote by Pia Henrietta Moon, the co-founder of Carbon Culture. And after that, we will have a roundtable discussion with our partners to highlight how to support and giving funding possibilities to sustainable urban tech startups. And then last but not least, we are introducing our first batch of startups with their videos. We are so proud of them.
So let's start and enjoy the winds of change.
Hello, everybody. I'm so thrilled to be here with you today. Congratulations, first of all, on embarking on your entrepreneurial journey. It's not an easy step. It's a very difficult decision to make sometimes, and it's a great way to build something new into this world. So you're brave, you're here, and you're doing it. This is very important, and those are the first steps. And today I want to share with you a few of my early sort of experiences and a few tips to talking to investors or how do you find your first funding or what do you think about your first team and so forth. And this is by no means a comprehensive guide. You should find mentors and great startup lawyers and so forth to work with, but I hope this can help you a little bit. I'm also very excited that the Helsinki ecosystem is so budding now, especially around urban tech. There's a lot of cool companies like around food tech, a lot of plant-based alternatives to older versions. And then there's also stuff like construction, like Hyperion Robotics, who are 3D printing concrete and all sorts of cool companies. So I'm sure yours will be on the radar soon as well. Great. Well, let's get started. How I started this entrepreneurial journey was by making this sort of conclusion that there's too much carbon in the atmosphere. And this carbon is the reason why we have global warming. So carbon is not a bad thing per se, but we've just put too much of it in the atmosphere where it's heating up faster than air. And so we have climate change that, of course, can have catastrophic consequences. So we need to do something fairly soon. But in any case, this carbon is kind of like the culprit here. And obviously, as you can imagine, it's far more easy to stop emitting carbon dioxide than to remove it from the atmosphere. And our debt in the atmosphere has now grown so large that we actually need to remove it to make any of our safe warming scenarios. So to remain under 1.5 degrees Celsius warming. And that is quite crazy. So this is something that we did not start out with, but now every single Paris scenario under the IPCC or others actually need carbon removal to make these scenarios. So time is running short and we have a lot to do. Our debt in the atmosphere is something in the order of 1 trillion tons of CO2 that we have emitted in the past. Too much CO2. There should be some CO2, but there's too much that we have emitted in the past 100 of years or hundreds of years. And so this is what we were thinking about. Okay, there's too much carbon in the atmosphere. How do we get it down from there? And what do we do with it? How do we store it? It's a gas, very difficult to handle and quite a large gas, so to say. And all these question marks, but luckily we embarked on this journey. So what the carboculture idea, my company is Carboculture, and I'm the co-founder and CEO. And what carboculture started as was the idea that what is the most elegant way to draw down this carbon from the atmosphere? And we thought about all sorts of different technologies. My co-founder had been looking at different ways of doing algae and all sorts of other production methods. But in any case, the kind of core idea was that nature is already doing this. It's already drawing down carbon at hundreds of billions of ton scale every single year. So, there's this idea of a carbon cycle where all of our vegetation or the plant biomass takes hundreds of gigatons of carbon, that's billions of tons, down every single year. But, as leaves fall on the ground in the autumn, they quickly decompose and then return to the atmosphere. So there's this natural, huge carbon cycle happening every year. And we wanted to tap into it because we thought that, hey, that's much faster than trying to invent something ourselves. And of course, now we needed to do a lot of invention on the stabilization part, but I'll get to that soon. So what we want to do is actually remove some of that carbon debt from the atmosphere and have it safely stored somewhere so that it doesn't re-enter the atmosphere or get back there, because the more carbon in the atmosphere, the faster the heating, and that's what's causing our climate to go haywire. So this was kind of like the original principle around it. And now carboculture, this is one of our taglines, but it's, I guess, hacking the carbon cycle is one of the things that we like to say, because we are just leveraging this humongous power of nature and what she does. But now, what do we do with this biomass? So here you see some walnut shells on the top left, and we've turned them into a stable form of carbon, a form of pure carbon. And this carbon will remain stable for 1,000 years or longer, even up to 1 million years. So this is a way where we can store it safely in soil. We can add it to urban plantations, such as urban tree planting, as they do in Stockholm. But really, we don't need to have expensive underground caverns or some crazy storage methodologies where we're not sure if we can store it for over 100 years or something. So this is really key in the carbon removal sector. And I won't get into too much detail, but it's good to know that if you're thinking about, okay, trees can remove carbon, but the stability of trees or how much, so to say, we give them on the scale of permanence is probably 10 to 30 years or maybe 50 years, because we don't know what happens to forests. They might be chopped down by some random people that show up, or they might burn down like happened in California, or something else might happen. So that's why the permanence scale is very short there. Of course, it's very cheap, so we can do it at larger scale. And then you have these other technological ways of doing things such as ours, where we use the plants to take down the CO2, and then we convert them to a stable form that stays stable for 1,000 years. So essentially, instead of inventing fans that capture the carbon, we use plants, and then those plants bring us the carbon dioxide for free by using solar power. So again, we're not putting a lot of needs on the grid or anything like that. And this is my last slide on carboculture. But in any case, I thought that since there's some urban nerds in the audience, I might tell you this. But this is basically how we try to explain this. So trees, crops, and biomass take down the CO2. Then we're using, for example, now we're using pitch pits and walnut shells and all sorts of food production waste. So foods go to packaging and we get the waste and then we process it. In the future, we will be growing our own biomass. So that means maybe engineered plants that can take down CO2 faster, or something else in degraded land, so that we're not putting pressure on land, or maybe even grow it in the sea. Now we put it in our secret reactor and take it to a very high temperature, to about 1,000 degrees Celsius for a split second. And there it turns into almost pure carbon. And then we have 3 products actually. Here you see 2. So one is the biocarbon itself. It can be used for example, for stormwater treatment in the urban areas or tree plantations, or for any soil purposes, because in the soil, it'll be some parts per thousands or millions. So then we know that nobody's going to go and sift it out in 100 years from now and start burning it. But we have a byproduct that's interesting for the urban space because it's renewable. We make syngases, which we can then use for renewable heat production. So for example, in the Nordics, we would use it for district heating. And then the third product is the carbon removal credits, which are pretty universal, but our clients like to buy them quite locally. So in this process, we actually physically stabilize the carbon, and for that, we get carbon removal credits. Great. So on this journey, before founding Carboculture, before I started Carboculture with my co-founder, Chris Carstens, I did a bunch of things that led to this. So I don't know if you know AaltoES, it's an Aalto University student organization. We did a lot of cool stuff, a lot of events with entrepreneurs, and brought some Stanford professor, Steve Blank, to Finland and all sorts of things. But we also organized a lot of stuff that you've never heard of because they totally failed and nobody showed up. But in any case, we did a lot of stuff, and that became very close-knit family to me. And a lot of those people have started companies since, or gone to work for startups, and that's quite cool. Then I also helped grow Rails Girls that my friends Linda and Kari started, and it grew to be an open source organization where mainly the developer community is plowing it forward now with mentorship and weekend workshops for women who want to get into programming. And then I founded MeHackIt, which was a super cool way to teach youngsters and teachers about the ugly side of technology, or let's say the unfinished side of technology. So we were teaching creative technology through arts and music and robotics, and we wanted to show, all of these devices are just so slick and easy to use, but what's behind them and what are the kind of where do all the wires go, and how do you build something yourself? And that was really cool. We made some self-driving robots with some students who said, "Oh, that's not for me," and I'll never do that. And then, 36 hours later, they have a self-driving robot. So that was really, really cool. And my co-founder there, Otso, is still carrying the flag and doing stuff with MeHackIt. Pioneers Festival was a cool conference in Vienna that we launched sometime, 10 years ago. And I was there in the team helping it in its first year. And Singularity University was this kind of a 3-month intense program for global solutions. So really looking at all the vicious problems that we have, such as poverty or water or education or other types of issues, environment, of course, and energy. And then thinking about how do we use technology to solve some of these issues. And this is actually where I met my co-founder, Chris Carstens. So it was a 3-month, very intense program at NASA. They didn't let us leave practically for 3 months. And it was a good chance to really, really forget about the rest of the world and think about what problems we want to solve. So that was a great experience. And of course, after that, done a bunch of things, but Carboculture was kind of born after that. And that's been my main thing for the past 4 or 5 years. Cool. So you've probably done some of these first steps already, and I won't get into perhaps too much legal stuff that you should have. Maybe, one thing I will mention from legal stuff. If you have a company, you've started it with friends, you need to have a shareholders agreement. This is something that we see quite often with founders who are just starting out, that they kind of don't want to start making some heavyweight paperwork with their friends, but actually that paperwork is the building block of your company. You need to have things on black and white, what if you leave in a half a year? And it can be external things. It might not be your friend who leaves. It might be they get a baby, or they have to move to a different country, or they got a job offer from somewhere, or something else, life happens. So you need to have things on black and white, and that's called the shareholders agreement, SHA, and you should get a startup lawyer to help you on that. And now, what is a startup lawyer? It's a lawyer who's very experienced in startups. So in Helsinki, it's probably Dottira or Bird and Bird, maybe some others, but it can't be your cousin's wife who knows something about, divorce legal stuff. You need somebody who actually knows the startup field and has done a lot of different financing rounds and agreements and stuff like that, because if you don't make those agreements well, it will cost you later. So that's why you need somebody with a little bit more experience to do those. Okay, but that's it for the legal stuff. Okay, so I'd say a couple of things you need to think about when you're starting a company. It might be difficult to sit down and think about things when you're excited about building stuff and talking to your co-founders, but here's one thing: is the vision. Like, what is the problem you are solving? Can you explain it to somebody who hasn't heard about your product in 1 minute without them getting very confused? So what is the problem that you're actually solving? And why is your team the only one that can solve it? I mean, there's a lot of startups out there and a lot of teams trying to build stuff. What is unique about your approach? What have you seen that others haven't seen? That's interesting to anybody, to your future employees, to an investor, to an incubator who's trying to, admit you maybe. So yeah, and then get some proof that people want what you are making. So find early traction, sign up people for a waiting list, whatever it takes, like get some people interested. And if people are not interested, that might be a good way of also iterating on your idea. So really kind of getting those proof points would be a good idea in the early phase. And then this is something that actually somebody at StartX asked us. They asked us a little bit of a different question, but here goes. So just thinking about this, if somebody agreed to invest 10 million euros today, what would you actually build with it? Do you have any idea what you would do with the funding, or what would be your vision that you could build with that money? Because no matter if you're going for your first 50,000 or your 2 million or something else, you still need to have that vision. What do you want to build into this world? And why is your team the only one that can actually build it? And if you can't answer those questions, then you need to go out and find some answers from the world and from your team. Okay, first scrambles. Talk to customers. That's painful. So everybody always talks to customers way too little in the beginning. And talking to customers is so important, because they'll, and not just people who are going to say yes to you, but go and talk to people. Tom Chi has this amazing prototyping course where he says, hey, if you're doing consumer stuff, why don't you go and, plant yourself in a mall for a day? Like, people are bored, they might talk to you for 5 minutes, and ask them about, hey, I was thinking about this service for XYZ. Do you have a few minutes time to answer questions? Or, show them early, you can draw a few like boards and have your prototype there, and just tell them like, okay, imagine this is a website and this is what you're seeing. Like, you don't even need to build the first website. You can just kind of get people to imagine your product and then give feedback. Of course, if you want to, you can build the product first, but it'll create a lot longer iteration cycle if you actually, every time you get feedback, you have to go back and actually build the app or whatever you're building. So sometimes these early conversations and kind of like play mock-ups can be really, really important, because there you get rapid feedback that you can quickly iterate on. If it's a Google Slides deck that you're using to talk to customers, maybe in urban tech, you need to go and talk to some people who work for a city or some part of it, or to companies, then you can have a deck, and, every time you get feedback, you can quickly iterate on that. And then you can start shaping, what are you actually building? But talking to customers is so important, because you don't want to build something for 6 months, use all your money and effort and time, and then come out and say, finally, it's ready. And then it's not something that people are excited about. So very few ideas start off with like exactly the same plan that it was in the beginning, and then when you get to customers, like thousands of customers, it usually doesn't look exactly the same. So yeah, like Airbnb started as a air bed and breakfast, like you would actually sort of couch surf in people's homes while they were there, and then they had some bagels or something for breakfast. But the concept changed a lot because people actually wanted to open their homes for strangers. So there's like that kind of concept making that you need to focus on. Then think about a plan. Like if you're alone, maybe you can do this with a couple of other entrepreneurs who you know, or with some friends. But if you have a co-founder, sit down with them, in a cafe for a half a day and think about it. Like, how long do you think it'll take to get to your first product, or to do 100 customer interviews, or to get your first pilot going, or something else, and think about that plan and what it looks like for the next months and the next, let's say the next 18 months. You can have a rough plan. It will change, but at least you'll have an idea of what you're doing. And then you can also talk with your co-founder or your team, like, hey, who's focusing on what, and who's the main owner of which thing, and let's envision it's ready. Like, what does it look like? So then you can have a lot of clarity in the beginning, like who does what. And of course, when you're scrambling to, should you hire this person or that person, because you don't know what you're focusing on, and who's your target customer market and so forth, that's okay. But you can build steps into your plan that then help you make those decisions. Like talk to 100 customers. Then after that, iterate, talk to 50 customers, and then iterate, and then who you need to hire or something else, so that you actually kind of know what you're doing for the next 18 months. And then of course, like, you go through that discovery phase and you try to find something that actually resonates with people, and that people are like, yeah, wow, why hasn't this been done before? That's like ideally your scenario, or people are like, how much of this can I buy? So everything that your startup should be focusing on is product market fit. Because if you don't find product market fit, and that means the ideal customer group for what you're building, pretty much everything else is going to be vain. Because if you don't find something that's like repeatable and scalable and that people actually want, then there's no point in building a business team and a PR and a marketing sector and all these things in the company if what you're making is actually not something that people want, and so, or that the world needs, But in any case, that's why that should be your laser focus. Like, how do you find out what is the thing that your company is going to start doing? Because at some point, if you want to grow a lot, it would be good to focus. Because then okay, for example, with Carbo, we were thinking, okay, do we go and replace activated carbon for water filtration, or do we do, soil stuff and so forth? And those would have been two completely different tracks with completely different experts, sales channels, networks, customer groups, et cetera, et cetera. So we would have had to change everything from our production technology to the distribution, to our salespeople, to everything. So you can't really build, when you start building your company, you can't really have 5 different companies that you're building. You just don't have enough money and time for that. So eventually you will need to choose one to accelerate in that area. So find that area and make it your main priority. And yes, there will be other things you need to do. You need to look at some paperwork or chase some investor down or something else. But the product market fit should be your number one thing. And of course, you need to plan out how you're going to pay your rent for the next 6 months. If you're a student or if you're working elsewhere still or something, that's great. Then you can use that sort of flexibility in your schedule and in your living costs, that you can just start building stuff and see what sticks. That's awesome. If you don't have that flexibility, then you have to start thinking, how are you gonna get some money in? Is it gonna be grants? Are you going for government funding? Can you get your first pilot customer in who would be enough money for you to work for the next months? Or do you need investors? And are you gonna find investors for your idea? And so forth. So there's a lot of question marks. And I know we have a lot to cover still. Another very, very key component of your early stages in your startup is your early team. These people are self-starters. You do not have to handhold them. You don't need to tell them what to do. They can look at stuff and see what needs to be done and crack on with it. They're almost like founders. They are your founding team. They can handle the uncertainty, work odd hours, whatever it takes, and have fun while doing it. And those are the people you really want around you. They think about putting, the company goes first, your colleagues go first, and then yourself. They don't have ego that they need some titles or they need some raises or something like that. Like, you need people who are ready to kind of do the shoveling with you and start building that company. And you'll know them when you find them. And you'll probably also know when you haven't found them. So listen to your instincts. But even though they're loyal, you still need to look after them. So obviously, these are your most precious people on the team. You really want to look after them because it'll be so difficult to replace them. If they're doing well on your team and they're fully onboarded, they're fully going, these people will be so critical to you. And in the early stages, well, very difficult to replace some of the people that are very, very good in the beginning. Just because everybody doesn't have that drive. Everybody doesn't want to work odd hours and do kind of donkey work and go to talk to customers and do boring stuff. They want to be in some shiny office with, a boss who's there from 8 to 4. So if you find those people, hold on to them and make them happy as well. Be open to them, share information, take them out for dinners and have fun and stuff like that. So really, really, and don't do anything silly like screw them over in their pay or something. The startup scene is very, very small and you don't want to do that kind of stuff. No. So really, really take care of your people. And of course, if there's somebody who's not working out, then it's better to make sure that that you let them go, or that they understand that, maybe it wasn't a great fit, because it'll be bad for you and for the person if they try to do something that's not a great fit. But in any case, that you should already know from interviews or if you've worked with them before. How do you find these kinds of early team members? One is probably you've done some projects in your schoolworks or university stuff, or you've worked for other companies or something else where you sometimes just sync really well with some person and you respect them for the kind of like work ethics. I would say those are probably great candidates for your early team members. And of course, you can also search for them. You can go to meetups or find people who are interested in startups or your space and whatever exactly you're doing, and then try to scout out the good people. But it's not for everybody. Joining a startup is messy. There's no good instructions. There's nobody to do, quarterly reviews with you, because people forget because they have so much other stuff to do. So it's not quite for everybody, but hopefully you will find great people. But people is very, very, very important because without the people, you don't have anything. Okay, big topic, and we have a little bit of time. Funding is very critical for startups, especially if you want to risk finance your startup and start growing it before you have revenues. So basically what it means, you're burning more cash than you're getting in, and you have your first early traction signs, like there's people who are like, lining up like crazy to buy what you're making. Then you can probably find some funding and some people who believe in you. But remember, you have to have the vision because there's no point in funding something that that won't make those returns for those investors. They need to get their money back many times over, because they fund 10 things and probably only a few of them will ever succeed, and only one of them will properly succeed. So they need to pay for all the losses with the winners. So that's why they only fund things that can be humongously successful, because then some of those will be. And the more moderately successful ones, perhaps there are other avenues of funding, or if you want to be more diligent and grow your company slower, that is totally valid. And there are so many great entrepreneurs who do that as well. Actually fund your company with customers and income. That's an amazing pathway, and you can totally do that as well. So, but today I'll say a couple of words about VC funding, because this is something that a domain where I wish I would have known more when I started. So finding capital, first of all, you have to think about, why do you need funding? Is this the right time? How much funding do you need? Look at that 18-month plan and think about how many people you need to hire, how much are you paying them? Do you have other expenses? And how much money do you need for that 18 months? But there are other reasons as well than just paying your rent and eating noodles to raise some money. It's also, you can get really good access to excellent people who have been through the entrepreneurial journey a few times. And so they actually have quite a lot of advice, and they remember stuff from when they were building things, and they might have networks, they might have access to more capital or talent or other things that will be important for you. So a good investor is worth a lot more than just the money. They will actually be able to guide you. A bad investor is also very bad. So, but look for, if you're talking to VCs, they need to be, professional VCs, and I'm sure you'll understand who's professional, who's not. And if they're angels, you just need to get along with them and see that they're not going to be difficult. But in any case, one thing to think about is, how much money do you need, and at which stage are you at? So especially funds, angels have their own amounts that they do. So you can go to Crunchbase or AngelList and go and see how many deals have these investors done, how much do they typically invest? Do they invest 10,000, or do they invest 50,000, or do they invest 250,000? There's all sorts of angels out there. And of course, there's government grants that you should definitely look into. There's also competitions and challenges, maybe even from customer corporations, that you should definitely look into, because those are great signals again, and getting that customer network growing. And then there's VCs, and VCs operate in stages. So if you're early stage, you're probably at pre-seed or seed stage funding. And if you are at a seed stage level where you have early customer traction, you have a great team together who have built cool stuff together before or something, and you have a few pilot customers in the pipeline, and it seems that your market is growing like crazy without you, that could be a good kind of like stack for a seed fundraise. But you should only go to seed level funds, like somebody a VC who typically does Series A or Series B or later stage is going to be useless to speak to. They might speak to you still because they're always curious to meet people, but you should talk to VCs who are in your domain, in your field. They do urban technology. If you're a hardware company, they've done hardware before, and they typically invest, if you say I need 1.5 million for the next 18 months, then you would want to find a VC or a lead investor who can put at least half of that on the table, so 750,000 euros. Or then you decide to raise 250,000 and you take it only from angels. That's, what we did in the beginning as well. So there's all sorts of ways to think about your fundraising, but you have to first think about, what do you need to do to prove yourself in the next months, and how far can you get with your customers and grants and everything, and what do you actually need like, are you at a stage where you can accelerate, or are you still in the discovery phase, and so forth. So just sit down with a plan and maybe get a mentor or a few. Mentors don't charge anything. They should be somebody who, you know, is a few programs ahead of you. They've done a startup before, or they're, you know, somebody else that you can trust. So yeah. Cool. So a couple of, I'll just name two types of risk funding that are very common in the Helsinki startup scene. So either you do a convertible note, which means that it's a paper that says, I give you this money now, and this money converts into shares at your next fundraising event. And typically you would give a discount for that investor. Like, I would give you now 50,000 euros, and then I would get a 20% discount from your next fundraising event. So then your shares would be 20% cheaper for me than for everybody else. And then that 50,000 would go towards shares. It's very fast to do. You can turn around a convertible note with a lawyer in a week or two, very, very fast. You can do, with the same note, you can do 20 investors. It's very straightforward and a very known sort of way of doing it. You don't have to negotiate your company value or how much the shares cost. That's all then delayed to the fundraising round. And then a funding round is a proper round where you typically have a lead investor. So you need to find an investor who's ready to lead the round, who takes about 50% of the round size, and then starts, you know, pulling together other investors as well. You will find the other investors very easily once you have that lead investor in place. So get the anchor first, and then get everybody else around. Typically that's, you know, when everybody wants to join. But so at that round, it's an actual sale of the stock, and there you need to negotiate with the investor on the price and how much of the company are you giving away, and so forth. So that's a little bit more complex, takes more time. Just the negotiation, once you found the lead investor, just the negotiation until you have the due diligence, like checking your books are in order, and you have your shareholders agreement in place, that will take many months. So it's a far longer process. So don't expect to go and raise a seed round and have money in your account next week. Probably not going to happen unless it's your fifth startup that's very successful. So yeah. Okay. And a couple of things I know already said from here. So look at people who are funding your stage in your area. You know, if you're doing, what would I say, like something in constructing drywalls with robots or something, then, you know, you need to find investors who are comfortable with that kind of a domain. An investor who has only invested in med tech before, or health tech, in very small scale robotics, or, you know, just software, is probably not going to be very comfortable with that idea. So find an investor who's a little bit more broad-minded and who can do sort of different kinds of technology sectors. Then if you have you know, an app or a web-based solution or something like that, maybe it's B2B, maybe it's B2C, check out which investors would have interest in your domain. There are more and more urban investors in Europe, which is very, very cool. There's also accelerators like not accelerators, but they're going to have a program, Urban Impact in Berlin and others. So 2150 in London is a urban investor, but a little bit later, like seed stage, and so forth. So find investors who are in your domain at your stage. You know, you can go to, again, Crunchbase or AngelList, find out what kind of tickets have they done before. So if you're expecting to raise 500K, don't go to investors who only do 3 million plus tickets. It's just going to be a waste of time, because everybody has their own structure, how they work. And get an intro through, if possible, their founder that they've already invested in. So an existing portfolio startup. If you can't do that, then, you know, somebody else is fine. But if you meet with an investor and they're like, how can I help you? But they don't want to invest, don't take introductions from them, because every single investor that they're going to introduce you to the other investors, going to ask, oh, cool, are you going to invest? And if they say no, then it's going to make the other person suspicious as well. But do your homework first. There's a lot of information online and you can Google things. And a small plug-in, we started a small fund with some friends who have done a bunch of different companies in the Helsinki ecosystem. So there's founders and there's operators from these companies and early stage employees. And we do 25,000 euro convertible notes, and you can apply at ventures.tuolinkanta.fi. It's an amazing bunch of people who have good networks. So if you're very early and you think you have groundbreaking ideas, you can apply for funding there. Cool. Thank you so much. You can follow me on Twitter and find us at carboculture.com. We're also always hiring for people, so exciting. Go and see what we have on offer. And I love this quote from Khalil Gibran, because I really feel like what I want to impact and what I want to, do in this world is so visible through my work, and I'm very, very grateful for that I'm able to do these things, and I hope you will also find that joy. So here's a couple of extra questions that got asked by the community. I'm running slightly over time, but I'll still take a few of these. So how different is it to build an impact startup to a regular startup? I'd say that I think everybody who builds a company wants to impact something. And now that might be, like we're using this bug discovery program for software programming that's really, really bad, and we want to build a better one where people don't have such a headache in doing it. That's fine, but they also identified a problem and they're building a startup to solve that. So in a way, I think everybody is sort of like going for impact in their startup. But now when we talk about impact startups, maybe we talk about something, more in the ESG field and so forth. I'd say maybe some years ago it was different to build it, but today it doesn't matter. All investors like impact startups. I won't say you have to worry about that at all. Building a company that started from academic research, well, that's interesting, right? And there's always these opposing forces of like R&D forever, like let's just keep on researching stuff until we find something like in a far away from customers and from the real world. And then there's like the sales team who are like, get this stuff out now. And you have to kind of manage that, those opposing forces in a way that makes sense for your company. But yeah, definitely research-oriented startups are fun, but you have to make sure that you're not just doing research, that you get stuff out into the world. How do you get all stakeholders to share your bold vision? You have to first build that vision and believe it yourself, and then you'll be much better at communicating it to others. And just practice. How do you get people to understand what you mean in a minute? And what's any advice for entrepreneurs in an incubator or accelerator? Yes, I've been through StarDex at Stanford and a bunch of other sort of programs. I'd say that there is a lot of network in these types of programs and a lot of help available, but it might feel overwhelming because there's so many things that you could ask for. So really try to understand, like, what is it that you need, and mostly who is it that you need to speak to, and what would solve your problem, or who would is it a customer? Is it a mentor? Is it a specific field that you need to speak to? But who is that person who could help you? And I think if you have those answers, you can go back to the team at these accelerators or your colleagues or the email lists or whatever your tools are and say, hey, I need this. Can somebody help me? And then usually if you have a very specific ask, people can help you easier. If you're just like, can you think of any investors that I should speak to? That's very, very, very generic. But if you say, hey, I need to speak to seed stage investors in spatial modeling of indoor buildings or investors in the 3D space or early stage software or whatever, or I found these 5 investors on Crunchbase. Can somebody introduce me to them? That's a much better ask, because then people can actually help you easier. Great. So I know we're over time. Thank you so much. And thanks for letting me participate from here in Singapore. And hope to see you soon someday. Thank you very much.
Hey, just saw a LinkedIn post about Urban Tech Helsinki. What is it?
Yeah, Urban Tech Helsinki is an incubator for clean and sustainable solutions. We help to turn business ideas into growth-oriented startups that help solve the challenges of modern cities. And the best is that the program is free and flexible.
Free and flexible? Sounds interesting. Our startup had this idea that might fit the program. How can I join?
Just apply to Urban Tech Helsinki if your startup is under 3 years, has a scalable business model, a validated concept and a strong technology. The call is open January 2022, so stay tuned. We help smart cities to look for smart people.
Exciting. We will apply.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Winds of Change Urban Tech Roundtable. And today's topic for us is how to get support and funding for your sustainable startup. And today I'm joined by an exclusive special group of people here with me from the Urban Tech region and the area. And I'd like to ask you first if you could kind of like state your name, your position and your organization, and especially tell us what's the key area that your organization is supporting on the urban tech startups. Maybe you could start.
Okay, my name is Marko Berg. I come from University of Helsinki, and we support startups by investing those in through Health Seed program to student startups, and we have been investing longer time to research-based University of Helsinki spin-outs. And we have also Think company in University of Helsinki, putting up the student entrepreneurial atmosphere in the university, and lots of more things coming.
Excellent.
Hello, great to be here. My name is Anna-Stina Tähkävuori, and I'm the Director of Innovations at Metropolia, a data-driven construction innovation hub. And what is the key support? I think there are 3 main key supports. One is, of course, obvious student projects and student collaborations. One is RDI projects, different kind of projects that we can apply funding together, or then startups can join some projects that are going on at the moment. And then maybe the unique one, and the third one is the test beds that we have in our 4 different campus areas.
Okay, sounds interesting. How about you?
Yeah, my name is Aaro Angerpuro. I'm the Vice President and the Treasurer of AaltoES. And the main benefit that we offer to startups is actually the community that AaltoES offers. So we bring together like-minded people who have an entrepreneurial mindset and therefore enforce them to take ownership of their ideas.
Excellent.
Hello, I'm Kalle Toivonen, work as Senior Specialist in City of Helsinki's Economic Development Division. Our unit is focusing on offering the companies, developers, testbed services, so utilizing city resources to develop new type of solutions, and of course we can fund those experiments as well.
Excellent. So we're going to have a lot of interesting views coming and different support. Okay, but let's tackle a little bit on the challenges and issues. What you have, maybe you can share a little bit how do we give more support on sustainable urban tech startup and founders especially? What do you see, what kind of issues or challenges have you seen in the recent years that we would need to put more emphasis and tackle on? Who want to jump on this one first?
Well, I can start. So from the public sector's perspective at least, maybe the main challenge that we have is perhaps the fact that we speak a different language than the startups do. So often there is a miscommunication about the expectations that you might have on new services. And through our testbed actions, we try to actually ease the trouble. So try to get the startups speaking the same language as we as public officials are. So that's one way.
So like communications improvement on the
Definitely communication and expectations maybe. So you can actually get what you're expecting to have. Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, so we are more about creating the community where people can come together. And for example, we have this project called We Get Helsinki, which is a community for impact entrepreneurs and people who are interested in solving the societal problems through impact entrepreneurship. So that's a concrete way that we want to inspire people.
And is there something you see that you should emphasize even more on how to attract more people, or is it flowing like a nice river at the moment? Or
yeah, of course we should maybe take more action into having these concrete ways that we could get people to know about these things that we have at AaltoES. So yeah, there is many organizations in Helsinki area, so it's great to have someone like knowledge to other people.
Okay, good. Anna-Stina?
Yeah, well, one thing is that how to support in these challenges is how to make the testing. Many startups have like some kind of solutions that they want to test in real life, in practice, and that's one main challenge. I can see that.
Okay, and then about do you see that there would be there's not enough testbed environments available,
Yeah.
or there's not knowledge about them, or
Yeah, that's one problem. Not knowledge and not enough test beds. And also I see that when we were talking about the community and networking, that these test beds can also affect on how to build more ecosystem and connect with other startups and companies.
Good.
From a university perspective, I see lots of potential in communication and cooperation. So, but also the one thing that I want to point out is, connecting students and researchers. So, researchers having a very broad understanding of a niche sector, and then students eager to do almost everything. And I think the sustainability is in their genes already. So, they could. One plus two could become three.
That sounds like a definite challenge and opportunity. When there's challenge, of course, convert easily into opportunities.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Maybe let's a little bit we have some couple of challenges and opportunities. Maybe you could highlight one recent success from your doing, and then maybe drop us some information on if there's something cool cooking up or upcoming projects which related to supporting the founders, basically.
I could start. So last year we introduced a Health Seed program to finance some interesting student startups. And I think one of the success in it was that one of the companies financed was a company having students from Aalto and students from Helsinki University. So I think in that perspective, the cooperation is a key as well. So that is a huge success. And one thing I would like to mention as well is that we are together with City of Helsinki. We are building incubator programs to all of 4 campuses in University of Helsinki. So that's a upcoming thing next year.
Okay, and is there a launch date already, or?
Not yet. It's probably been planned at the moment, but it will be there. So there will be more paths to students and researchers as well.
Okay, that sounds exciting. So keep tuned for some announcement coming a little bit later. Then, yeah. How about Anna-Stina? What's your?
Well, maybe the one is this Urban 3 space, which was actually part of our project. How we based it because I was working earlier in a project where we were helping smart mobility startups and SMEs to develop their own business, and because of that project, we were looking for some ecosystem and space to facilitate the ecosystem for smart mobility sector. And that's how we met Kira Hub, and that's how Urban 3 facilities were established. as a kind of part of that. But also I can see all the test beds we have in Metropolia. For example, maybe the most known XR center in Arabia campus, which is for extended reality and for the startups who are working in that sector. That was originally based also because of one project funded by Helsinki Innovation Fund. So those are maybe the main highlighted.
Yeah, I want a little bit more about the XR Center. I remember I went to the opening like 2 years ago and something, and how during the Corona times has it been like full, or how's been the development of the...
For example, next week there will be this, actually this week, there will be the event Match XR for the whole ecosystem. So if you haven't seen the event, you should definitely join that.
Okay.
And see the ecosystem and all the industry workers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And is there something more upcoming projects from your side that you might give us a little light?
One that comes to my mind is the European Union funded project called Big Flash. Okay. It's a project for all the startups who are working in robotics and AI and autonomous systems, for example. And the aim in this project is to get, was it something like 150 startups and SMEs in the network. So that's one big project that you should be checking on.
Good. How about AaltoES?
Yeah, I want to highlight that earlier this year we launched a project called Founders Club, which is a community for founders to come together and find peer support. And we have been organizing different kind of sessions for the founders, and it has had some traction, and it's been a good way for founders to connect with each other.
Okay, is there some specific angle for this, or do you have to be sustainable or urban tech, or is it
no, you just have to be like entrepreneurial minded in a sense, and to have some kind of like a startup or a idea of a startup.
And then how more in the practical ways of how do you see the program developing for the, let's say, for next year, for 2022?
Yeah, I can't say that much on that because actually the board is changing, and at AaltoES there is of course always a kind of uncertainty, is the project being continued on next year.
Okay, well, let's hope the new board would be then following up and then keeping some sustainable developments there also. And then how about on the City of Helsinki? I'm sure there's a million different projects going on there.
You're right. So, of course, I'm really excited about the incubator collaboration that we have ongoing, and of course I want to highlight the Urban Tech Helsinki. That's one success case, of course, on this front. But maybe from the communication side and really getting like the officials and startups to discuss with each other, I would like to highlight the fact that we have established quite a few testbeds already on different sectors of City of Helsinki. And I think that action of bringing the startups to real environments to test new solutions, that has been quite successful. We have great cases on trying new solutions in real environments, real occasions, such as teaching, for instance, or mobility. So really excellent examples there, and you can always expect to see more. So I would like to highlight that you should actually take a look at testbed.helsinki to see what opportunities you might have in the future.
Okay, and then could you name is there something which is very specific for today's topic, that you could highlight for some?
Well, we have started only recently circular economy cluster, which is a larger scale project on sustainable solutions. So that would be one key example on what's going right now.
Okay, excellent. So there's a lot of things going on, and we don't have time to go through everything here, obviously, today, but for everybody to check out and go see more details on the online and bring everybody involved there. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about the funding part, because we know obviously for the startup having the right kind of funding at the right time and from the right kind of investor is very critical for the success. And what's your opinion? So is there enough funding available for early stage? urban tech, sustainability startup, and is it beating grants or equity investments or all kind of in the between? And like, is it easily accessible? What do you see the gaps or especially in the Helsinki region where we are now? Maybe
I can start. So as stated before, of course, we have now invested more on the incubator services, and we're really pushing effort there. So there has been a huge gap on early stage funding, of course, and I'm happy to see that it's developing. Maybe something that is still there, I think there's a lot of opportunities out there for startups, but the communication about these opportunities is not the best possible that might be. So there's still a lot of work to be done there just to get knowledge on what's actually available and how can this be utilized. Yeah. So definitely there's always like ask for more funding, and of course I would be happy to see more funding coming to Helsinki region, but I think it's more about the opportunities and not only the funding, but really representing the startups with interesting challenges to solve and participate too.
So also the bigger kind of like the impact of the startup, which is
definitely
more also not on the only funding part and not making money, but also but obviously from the investor point of view, that's a logic that you can do good, but you need to make some returns also there. Maybe we'll get back to you shortly related to that. But is there, how do you say from AaltoES, from the very early, you bring people with ideas and you convert them into startups, and how do you see especially the very early stage funding part currently, and is there gaps, or do you see that there's enough money available for the good startups?
Yeah, of course. For good startups, there is always money available if you are just good enough. But like, at AaltoES we don't provide any funding, so I don't have that much of excessive knowledge on that subject actually.
Okay. How about from Metropolia?
Well, I think I'm not the best person to tell you about how to find funding, but maybe to highlight the possibilities that we can offer for help to find it is the now just started the pre-incubator program called Campus Incubator, funded by the City of Helsinki. So I think, like Kalle said, the main thing is to find the right partners, and if you have problems to get funding, so you just have to find someone to ask for help or
obviously getting investment ready, and especially if you're coming from the deep tech or from the science space, how do you formulate the team and having the right kind of expertise there so that the investor, because they look at can this team really execute that and then on this vision, so that's very important. But maybe you are directly involved with the investment part, so maybe you can share a little bit more about the Health Seed and kind of like emerging from the university. And do you have anything like tell us like what's cooking in the investment program, and do you see some gaps there at the moment or?
Well, I think the largest gap is the support. So there is lots of that available, but still I think the support at the very early stage is even more important than the money. So and as said, it's available, but still that is hugely needed. And I think that angel investors could take some of that part as well. So they could have the kind of a very small ticket, but give help and be there to invest more when the case matures. But regarding Health Seed a bit more, so yes, so we invest in student startup, 10 to 50k euros, and there needs to be one student from University of Helsinki, and we of course provide also support, but I wouldn't say that we are kind of same kind of a support that angels could give.
You're not like fully hands-on.
Exactly, yeah. So we have
money and the network part.
Yeah.
Do you do like follow-on investments?
It's possible, yes.
Have you done?
Not to Health Seed cases yet, because it was launched last year and first investments were made this year, so they are quite early on still.
Still cooking.
Exactly.
There. Okay, and is there any kind of like just one more is there some sustainability angle in the Health Seed opportunities or?
Not particularly, but I would say that almost all of the student startups or the cases which I've seen have been very sustainability driven. So I wouldn't see that as a thing that we are worried about. Okay, well, I'm happy to hear that. So it means we are moving towards the putting impact, putting sustainability in everything we do. I sometimes say that we need to work on the impact so we can take the impact word out of the impact, basically. That when we have 51% of everything, then we can maybe take that out. And okay, we're running out of time soon, but let's discuss a little bit about, especially we have schools here. So how can we engage the students better on the either jumping to create their own startup or then joining a startup or a project on like that? Is there any how can we engage even more? Even I hear good news, but what's lacking even more to engage the students?
Well, we have actually now started to engage more students so that when we are even planning the funding, whatever funding program it is, we are making in the very beginning the plan how to involve students in which way, and of course how to use the multidisciplinary research focus areas that we have, and all the students and teaching and professionals. That's one thing. Then how to participate in our student projects that are going on is one example is the Minno concept, innovation projects that are going on at the moment, and there students from variety fields of studies are researching and developing some innovation that the idea comes from company or startup, and students from ICT, business and construction and real estate, for example, are working on these together for one semester. So this is one way.
Okay, how about Aalto?
So yeah, AaltoES is all about bringing the like-minded students together. So like we therefore enforce them to create startups and have this kind of more interaction between each other and maybe find a co-founder on a project. And yeah, actually that has been one problem that has to be highlighted, that people have issues with finding a co-founder. Yes. And we have this project called Posted, which is a platform where people can post their startup or a project and therefore find a co-founder from people who are interested.
Okay, but that's an excellent thing. So that is, I think, one thing that students could take an action is to join that platform and, you know, hail their kind of expertise and wanting to become a founder partner of some project. So.
Yeah, it's a great initiative.
Yeah. And that's also one thing in this campus incubator program that I told you already, is that we are building this kind of student paths for the study programs to like for how to start your own business. Yeah.
Excellent. I think we are running out of time. Maybe we'll do a quick question still related to, of course, the test beds provided by the city, but of course we will still need often the bigger corporations or others. So how can we engage more this test bed corporation for piloting opportunities? Is there also a dialogue missing with the bigger corporation? How do we lure them in to collaborate with the early stage startups? Anybody got an idea on that?
I think there could be a link from, let's say, from university. So university could round up corporations and then match them up with startups.
Yeah, and also from the research already.
Exactly.
Well, Metropolia has now something like over than 40 different work-life partners, and these partners are all like companies, different sizes. But that's one way we can offer for startups and larger companies some kind of research together and students and teaching. So that's one way.
Excellent. So, hey, thank you so much for everyone. It's been very fascinating. There's a lot of work still to do, but it's so good to hear there's a lot of action going on. And then when we come out of the silos and collaborate together and find new ways of connecting people and putting them together, and then we're going to get great new companies coming from the Helsinki region. So thank you from my side. I'm Jan Amari, CEO of ArcticStartup, and thank you all the panelists for today, and have a wonderful rest of the event.
Hey, our startup is looking for funding. So what does Urban Tech Helsinki offer?
Oh, much more than funding. It's an opportunity. As you know, all the things that are in the urban tech context is now booming. Environmental issues, sustainability, climate change, energy efficiency in built environment. So these things are more relevant than ever. So timing is right for urban tech companies. Don't miss this opportunity.
Yeah, but what are the exactly benefits?
So we provide you visibility in the Helsinki metropolitan startup ecosystem and how to get best out of it. And access to our networks, our partners' networks, Helsinki University, Aalto University, City of Helsinki and Metropolitan. And of course, one-to-one coaching sessions, peer-to-peer support with your fellow startups, and super active startup hubs like Maria 01 and Agrid, the two best or biggest in the Nordics. So we are not offering you any silver bullets on your startup success or fundability. We are offering you hard work, how to stick on your jointly roadmap, and how to get your fundability and success with your milestones and your goals to be achieved. So we are here to help you with our excellent team and tier universities. Please welcome.
I'm already excited.
We are an Aalto University spin-off with the mission of providing carbon-neutral construction solutions for extreme environments. Our solution is based on a new wood construction innovation called BIS, which enables us to build wooden construction elements that are extremely moisture-resistant, durable, scalable, and carbon-neutral. The first products out of BIS tech are vertical farm buildings for urban farmers. We have chosen this path because BIS tech is tailored for the extremely humid indoor environment of vertical farming, and because we believe that we can help this industry by replacing concrete with wood. We have now combined BIS tech with the best smart data and plant cultivation solutions to offer you a turnkey vertical farming solution. Our vision is to make urban farming easy, profitable, and sustainable from Alaska to Australia. So give us a call if you want to start producing your own food. Thank you.
We make manual controllers for autonomous vehicles and mobile robots. As more and more semi-autonomous vehicles start moving around us in cities, these new vehicles need operators with new ways to control them. And that is where we come in. We know the struggles of autonomous driving operators who don't currently have intuitive, safe, and robust ways to control these vehicles every day. At the same time, citizens need to be sure that the vehicles around them are under control of securely identified operators. We focus on being the missing link between these fleet-supporting human operators and their autonomous vehicles, reshaping the way transport is controlled.
Greenele is specialized in electric vehicle charging solutions, and we have built our own charging station and service. What we have done is we have taken the technology of Type 2 and combined it with the low power output of 3.7 kilowatts. Even with 3.7 kilowatts, it is still enough for the average person, as you get over 200 kilometers during overnight charging. On top of this, we provide metering and billing as a service for those who want as an option. Greenele is fully committed into making the future more sustainable by providing affordable and clean energy for the masses.
Our company, Evergreen Walls, is focused on providing automated farming systems for local food production for businesses and households. Now, food waste is a huge problem in the fresh produce industry, and it's estimated that around 40% of all the fresh produce is being wasted before reaching the customer. Now, we want to tackle this problem by growing our own food, ultra-locally and year-round.
Our goal is to offer fresh produce with little to no maintenance and at the same time reduce food waste and packaging. Our products allow people to grow crops using less water and no need to use pesticides or other chemicals. Growing food locally also eliminates the need to transport food from long distances, and we think it's important in building a more sustainable future and reshaping the wasteful supply chain.
Urban farming is not only a fun hobby and an ecological way to produce your own veggies in your backyard or in your balcony. It's also seen as a true solution to solving the food crisis where we're heading. We want to make growing as easy as possible, and that's what Blokgarden is all about. It's a ready-made garden box that we deliver to your doorstep in the spring. During the summer, we help you to grow those plants with our dedicated app. You get weekly tasks and instructions on what you should do with the plants so that you're successful. In the autumn, we come and collect back the box, recycle the soil, and store the boxes for the winter, so they're all set for the next season. Blokgarden is for kindergartens, nursing homes, private people, restaurants, rental housing, for anyone who wants to grow fruit close to you.
At Ekotekt, we build houses using large-scale 3D construction printers and environment-friendly concrete. The challenge of construction industry today is that it's very labor-intensive, it's very time-consuming, and also it's responsible for 11% of the total global CO2 emissions. We are changing this. So at Ekotekt, we can create beautiful, very complex, and efficient structural designs which can be directly sent to our printers, and we can construct the houses. By doing this, we save up to 20% of the material requirements, 60% of the labor requirement, and it's 36% faster and 30% cheaper. So, and we also use environment-friendly materials to build our houses. In future, we would like to contribute to the cities which are more sustainable, beautiful, and very creative. So if you want to know more about us, you can reach us. Thank you.
Antibiotic resistance is a silent pandemic compared to COVID-19, but it will be far deadlier. Imagine if you would be hospitalized and there would be no antibiotics left that could treat your infections. This would be because you were infected by bacteria that are resistant to antibiotics. The constant use of antibiotics in hospitals leads to emergence of resistant bacteria that are then spreading to the environment through the wastewater systems. It becomes far more complex task to identify the bacteria and their origins when they are already in the environments. This is where Resistomap comes in. We are a data-driven laboratory service that wants to help the cities to improve their wastewater treatment facilities by providing a data that will let them know where the hotspots of antibiotic resistance are. We want the cities to be able to ensure that their communities have access to clean water safe from antibiotic resistance. Join us to the fight against the silent pandemic.
AvA is a technology platform for smart residential buildings and for the people of those buildings. AvA enables efficiency and clarity to building management by automation and intelligence. AVA is designed for human collaboration, data management, energy optimization, and to be a hub of both digital and physical service providers of smart residential buildings. Currently, more than 4 billion people lives in cities, and it's estimated that during upcoming decades, more than 7 billion people will live in cities. To enable housing services for all these people, we need a smart platform to efficiently bring supply and demand of housing services together. And that's what we do with AVA. We enable housing services and efficient property management.
Hi everyone, my name is Violeta and I work as an intern in a mobility startup Dash Factory, which is located in Leipzig, Germany. We wanted to make cycling safer for everyone, and that's why we developed our product Dash Bike, a dash camera for bicycle. So our startup is divided into 2 sectors. We have a Dash Bike app and a Dash Bike, and then we also have Dash Truck, a unique data platform. So for the cyclist, when they use Dash Bike, they can react to dangerous situations such as 2 closely passing vehicles, and then they can generate these evidence files of overtaking events in a privacy and compliant way. We store all the anonymized and analyzed data in our Dash Factory cloud, and our data can be easily implemented into the urban data platforms of the cities. So cycling infrastructure can therefore be effectively improved through the structural engineering measures. In the last few years, the amount of cyclists has risen dramatically in many cities, and in some cities it's already a primary mode of transportation. In order for these changes to go smoothly, we must ensure that cyclists are safe. We hope that with our product we can help both cities and cyclists in their efforts for a transition to a greener future in the upcoming years. Would you like to join us?
Thank you so much, Pia Henrietta, for the keynote, partners for the great discussion in the roundtable, and of course our loving startups with the great videos.
Thank you. And our next call for innovative urban tech startups will be opening in a few weeks. So follow us in the social media, on LinkedIn and Twitter, and of course this brand new YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us and hope to see you soon again.